Welcome to the MS Gym podcast, where we give you the tools to live life by design, not by diagnosis. I'm your host, Brooke Slick, and here we go. Hello, everyone. It feels so good to be back. I have been on hiatus for a few months, and Jody has been pulling the weight with regard to the podcast, and I have to thank her immensely for stepping in when I was unable to record. So here's the story. I shared my story with Ken. Of course, he wanted to know what was going on with me. Shared it with Ken. And he said, you should make a podcast episode out of this. I'm sure there are some people who could relate. So I'm going to do that right now. This episode is up close and personal for me. It explains why I've been off grid for the last few months, my continued battle with trigeminal neuralgia, and even more disturbing, at least to me, my mental struggle with fear. I will share how even the most strong-willed, strong-minded person may need to seek counseling to get over the mental hurdles of living with a chronic illness, in particular, pain. Most importantly, I want you all to know that seeking counseling is for the wise, not the weak, and it can set you free from your time-wasting, joy-sucking struggle with fear and mental angst. Back in February, I had just returned from a vacation in Hilton Head, South Carolina. I was tired, of course, but, that's typical. Well, then I got the flu. And with that, I started to get shingles. And then after I got the shingles, I had an attack of trigeminal neuralgia, something that I have dealt with for the past 7 years. I had it before that, though. I had it as far back as 2013, but I didn't even realize that's what it was at the time. And trigeminal neuralgia is a chronic pain condition of the face that affects the trigeminal nerve that runs up over your, let's say, your eyebrow, down through the middle of your face, and then your lower jaw. That's why it's called trigeminal. There are 3 branches of this nerve. And what happens is there are 2 kinds of trigeminal neuralgia, TN1 and TN2. TN1 is the kind that I have, where you have these immense shocks. They start as shocks and then they end up as full-on episodes where it feels like someone has taken a knife, put it into a hot fire, and then stabbed you in the face with it and wiggle it around. It can come out of nowhere. You can literally just be sitting there, enjoying your day, and boom, it's like someone walked up and stabbed you in the face. For me, in the past, I've had up to 55 of these episodes a day. This was about 4 years ago. And it is truly kind of life-altering. Your life gets incredibly small. So anyway, I have had 4 surgeries for this altogether, including my most recent one. But the last one that I had was 2 years ago, and it was cranial surgery. I had that surgery done in January of 2020, literally a month or so before the pandemic came into existence. But since that time, I had enjoyed 2 blissful years of 0 pain. So imagine my dismay when I was talking to my mom online on a video chat and I got an attack. And it completely blindsided me. Then I had an attack right after that, and then another one after that. So, all in the same day. So I knew that I needed to make a move right away, find out what my next surgical option would be. Because pain meds had not helped me at all in the past. So I was to the point where surgeries were the only thing that worked. So I contacted my neurosurgeon, and they got me in right away and discussed with me my different options. And it looked like gamma knife surgery was going to be the best option for me. Gamma knife surgery, which I say surgery, but it's not invasive. It is radiation. It is pointed radiation. And when I say pointed, there are like 200 or so beams of radiation that are pinpointed to your trigeminal nerve. And when they do that, it creates a scar or a lesion on the nerve that blocks and impedes the pain from getting through to the trigeminal nerves. So, as much as we all hate to see scarring or lesions, I was all about it. Bring on the lesion to stop the pain. So I had the treatment done on March 18th. And what was different about this surgery, or treatment, whatever you want to call it, the treatments that I had had in the past, they were glycerol rhizotomies. I had 2 of those. And then I had an open partial rhizotomy, which was cranial surgery, where they cut a hole in the back of your skull and go in and burn a nerve and then put the piece of skull back on. That's the one that lasted 2 years. The difference between those surgeries and this one are you get immediate pain relief from the 3 prior surgeries that I had done. Like when you walk out of the OR, you are no longer in pain. This is different, and you know that beforehand. You know that up front. Even though some people will see immediate pain relief, typically it takes longer to see the effectiveness of the treatment. So it could be a month, it could be 6 months, really, until you see the full efficacy of the radiation treatment. And I knew that going in. So fine, but of course I always hope for the best, and they told me, there are some patients who will see relief right away and that'll be it. So sure enough, I saw relief right away. And for 2 fabulous weeks, I had no pain at all. And then all of a sudden, I am baking cookies with my granddaughter, who's 3, and my husband. And right in the middle of her cracking an egg, I got an attack. And I was like, son of a gun. I'm like, what am I going to do now? I knew this was part of the process, but I was still having attacks, and pain is pain is pain, and it is excruciating. When I get these attacks, I literally, every single time, I go to my hands and knees. I don't know what it is, but I go straight to the floor every time. I grab my head, I go to the floor, I start to sweat, I start to hyperventilate, my heart rate goes through the roof. You feel like you're having a heart attack in your face. I've never had a heart attack, but I can imagine it's painful. I contacted my doctor, let him know, what was going on, and they wanted to give me Solumedrol, which I won't take anymore. I've had way too much of that, and it makes me kind of insane. I'm sure many of you know what Solumedrol is, whether you've had a 3-day course or a 5-day course of it. I never did well with it. I had it every single time that I had optic neuritis, which was 4 different times. So we decided that I would try pain meds again. In the past, I had been on gabapentin, the highest dose that I could possibly have for my body and weight, and it never worked, and it truly made me a zombie. I mean, literally a zombie. So I really didn't want to take it, but I knew that I had to wait out the recovery process of this surgery. And so it's not like I could run out and get another surgery. I just had one 2 weeks earlier, and it was radiation, which was going to take time to work, which required patience, something that is not my strong point. So anyway, I agreed to take Lyrica, or pregabalin, which is the generic version of Lyrica, I believe. It's all a pain nerve med, number type of med. So started taking that, and I have not, that was 4 weeks ago, and I have not had any pain since. It's exactly 4 weeks ago today I started taking it, and I have not had any pain since. It does not make me feel like a zombie. It does make me, a few hours after I've taken it, it definitely slows me down a bit, and unfortunately it throws off my balance, just what I need, because I have balance issues from MS as it is. So I'm pain-free. I should be happy. But turns out I'm not. I'm not happy. And it has nothing to do with having to wait it out to see if the treatment works permanently. It was fear. I have been dealing with fear of another attack. And with every one of these attacks that I would get, every attack has a tell. And when I say a tell, it's like a symptom, a little something that happens. For me, it's this sensation that I get on the side of my head that I know an attack is coming. And every time you get the tell, you know something's coming, so you automatically kick into fear mode. And I start to hyperventilate, I start to sweat, and I can't move. I'm frozen in time. And I'm afraid to get up. I won't walk from one end of the house to the other. I won't stand up. I sit in my chair and I don't move. And typically, I truly am one of the strongest minded people that I know. I have been through more crap in the last 20 years than most. But it's typical of somebody who has MS. You know, we deal with so much crap. To kind of give you some context here as to why I consider myself strong-willed, strong-minded, resilient. When I was 35, I'm 57 now. When I was 35 and I had been married for 3 months, my daughter was 6, she was in kindergarten, I had a stroke. And I was the marketing director at the time for a tourist attraction, and I was writing a press release, and I was in the middle of the release and I couldn't find a word. I was always the person that everybody went to when they couldn't think of a word. Oh, what should this word be, Brooke? Well, suddenly I became that person, and it just wouldn't come out. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. It just wasn't coming out. So fine. Same day, I go into a meeting and I'm taking notes at the meeting, and I'm writing the notes, but it's like my mind was not computing what I was writing. Like it was just kind of a habit that I was writing down words, but I couldn't really read the words. They didn't make any sense to me. So fine. So I went home that day, drove home. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but I didn't know what was going on at the time. I called my mom and I said, ask me to spell a word. And she's like, what? I said, just ask me to spell a word. She would ask me to spell a word, and I would spell it phonetically. And I couldn't spell the word cat. And all of a sudden she's like, Brooke, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, I don't know. So she calls, the next door neighbor who is a doctor, and he has me come in, and sure enough, I had had a stroke. But we didn't know why. And we wouldn't know why for 3 months. But that's a whole other story. So anyway, it turns out that I had a clotting disorder called a lupus anticoagulant. And it had caused the clot. Now, within 4 months, I was okay and got my memory back. That was another thing. I couldn't remember people's names, faces. It was hellish, okay? And I completely recover. And within a year, I decided I'm going to go back to work, but not where I was working before, somewhere else. I'm on my way to an interview, and on the way to the interview, I'm driving, and I couldn't see out of my eye. And I was like, what the hell's going on? So I sat through the entire interview with only partial vision in one eye, go home, call my neurologist who was treating me for the lupus anticoagulant, and he came to the conclusion that I most likely had a stroke in my eye, based on my blood work that showed that I was not within the safe range that I should have been. I was taking Coumadin at the time, and I had a therapeutic range, and apparently I wasn't within that range. I was kind of in a danger zone, and that likely caused a stroke in my eye, which would later turn out that was optic neuritis and not a stroke in my eye. So there's that. And it wasn't until 6 years later that I had other symptoms that led them to diagnosing me with MS. And from that point on, I went from having to take beta-seron, that failed, taking Copaxone, that failed, taking Tysabri, that failed, taking Galenia, which was in a drug study mode at that time, and then ultimately leading to having a stem cell transplant in Russia in 2013, which was successful. So I've been through it, and at no point ever was I depressed about it. Did I have anxiety about it? I never went through any of that. I was, okay, this didn't work, what's next? This didn't work, what's next? There was no, poor me in the middle of it. Never. I never went there. I was never fearful. Yes, I would worry about, what's my future going to look like, all of that kind of stuff. But I was never fearful, and never had to seek counseling, none of that. I just suck it up, buttercup, keep it moving, and that's the way I am with everything in life. I don't have time for boo-hooing. It's just not part of just not who I am. And it wasn't until just this last month or two that, even though, I've had this treatment for the trigeminal neuralgia, it's a pretty severe treatment. It's radiation, for God's sake. I still was living with the fear of having additional attacks. Even though I'm on pain meds and all that good stuff, still I could not get out of this thought loop that I could potentially have another attack. And then I kept revisiting in my mind all of the most notable attacks that I had had in the past. Ones where, I've passed out and peed my pants type thing. Yeah, that was a good one. The one with my granddaughter where I'm baking cookies. The one where I was driving on my way to Pittsburgh to meet a potential transplant patient, and I'm driving down the road and I have an attack, and I'm 40 miles from home and 50 miles from Pittsburgh, and I had to turn around and go home, and I drove home the whole way holding the side of my head, petrified I was going to get another attack, because as I said earlier, when I have an attack, I have to get on the floor. Like, I have to put my head, I have to lean down, where you can't do that when you're driving. But I kept revisiting in my mind all of the most horrible attacks that I had ever had. And I could not stop reliving the past. And I've seen it a million times in other patients, in other MS patients. I've counseled over 100 MS patients since 2013 when I had my transplant. I had people contact me from all over the world before or after their transplant, just how they can deal with certain things they're going through and what to expect. And, I've always in the past, I've never poo-pooed people seeking counseling for mental health issues. Never poo-pooed it for anyone, ever. It is a real thing, and, just like if I have an infected tooth, I'm going to go to the dentist and get it fixed. If I have a mental health problem, you do the same damn thing. But the stigma is real, and even though I never poo-pooed it for anyone else, I did poo-poo it for myself. I always thought that I was not above, that's a bad way to describe it, that it's just not something that Brooke was ever going to have to do. Thank God I'm strong enough. I'll never have to do that. I'm just so lucky that I'm so strong-willed, so strong-minded, that I never, ever, my mind just never goes to those dark places. I'm Susie Sunshine all the time, which, you get grief for sometimes. It's like people can't even ask you certain questions because they know I'm going to come back at them with some positive take on it, and sometimes people don't want to hear the positive. They want you to talk it out. So anyway, I find myself in this position where I'm doing exactly what so many of the people that I've counseled myself were doing, and me thinking, that'll never be me, thank God. Well, here I am, and I'm constantly re-looping back to these episodes that have happened and living in fear. And so I got to the point, I'm not stupid. I recognize that I think I might need help for this. Good God. So I talked to my daughter, who's a nurse, and she recommended someone. And a month ago, I went to see her for the first time. I've seen her twice now. Yesterday was the latest appointment. And what we've come to realize is the difference between now and all the other things that I've been through throughout the years. There was no actual physical pain in all the other things that I had been through. And when I say that, you're thinking, how could you not have pain? You have MS and you had all these things done. Well, yes, there was pain when, I had a spinal tap so many years ago. There was pain when after the stroke, for 7 years, I went every single week and got blood work done. So there was pain every single time I got a jab to get blood taken. There's pain from spasticity in my legs and the MS hug, but not this kind of pain. And those kinds of pain, when you're getting a blood draw or you're getting a spinal tap, they're going to say, you may feel a pinch with this. Okay, big pinch. Or they're going to numb the area of your spine before you get the spinal tap. Doesn't mean I'm not going to pass out during one of those spinal taps. Just saying. True story. But you knew that pain was going to be over. Yes, it was going to hurt at that moment, but by the time you left the doctor's office, the pain was going to be gone. That is not the case with trigeminal neuralgia. You don't know when it's coming, you don't know how many times it's coming, and you typically don't know how long it's going to last. My attacks, because there are two kinds of trigeminal neuralgia, TN, we'll just call it TN. There's TN1 and TN2. I have TN1, which is the quick electrical shocks that turn into a full-on episode of pain. Mine typically last about 27 seconds. How do I know that? Because that's how I get through the episode. I count. I count through the episode. I breathe really hard. And that's how I survive each episode. Most recently, my fear of that happening again at any time and constantly thinking and concentrating on the fact that it could happen again is what finally led me to make the smart decision to seek counseling. And what I found in these sessions is that some of the solutions, some of the tools that I've been given are rather simple things. It's basically talking myself through what's happening and why I'm having these feelings. And I think to myself, these are things that I probably could have figured out on my own. But sometimes you need to get another opinion. You need to have what you're thinking in your head validated by a professional. And seeking this kind of counseling is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that you're crazy. It's actually a smart decision. It's a productive, more efficient way of dealing with something that is wasting so much of your time. I've wasted more time thinking about what could happen and sitting in a chair in fear of that pain, that having the opportunity to talk to somebody else was the best decision I've ever made. Everything I thought about was being validated. I now have simple tools to get me through these episodes of thinking that something's going to happen. And every time I do that, I would basically be re-experiencing all of the physical symptoms as well. I would start sweating. I would be fearful. My heart rate would go up because your body doesn't know and your mind doesn't know the difference between if an event is happening now or happening 10 years ago. It thinks it's happening now. So basically, you're reintroducing the trauma into your life again and again and again. And I was given simple tools to help me get through it. Like simple little things, as simple as asking myself, Brooke, are you safe right now? Are you in pain right now? And if the answer to those is no, then get the hell off the chair and do what you were planning on doing. So it can be as simple as that, and all it takes is that decision to say, you know what? I don't think I can do this by myself. I need to talk to someone. As simple as that. And forget the stigma around it. Forget the family member who might say, oh, you don't need that, or that's ridiculous. Well, guess what? That family member isn't you. They're not living with it. They're not dealing with it. You know, in my case, when I told my husband or my mom or my in-laws, you know, I think I'm going to seek counseling, they knew if I was seeking counseling, they knew it must be something serious, because they know my personality. They know that I'm strong-willed and strong-minded and resilient. So if I was asking for help, I must really, really need it. And I can only hope that your family and friends are as supportive as mine were. And it really was the smartest decision I've ever made. And now I have the tools to stop the loop of thought that is wasting my time and sucking the joy out of my life. I don't have time for it. You don't have time for it. I want you to know it's okay to ask for help. Just ask for help. So that's my story, you guys. That's where I've been. That's what's been going on since February. And that's why I've been kind of MIA. I am slowly and surely recovering from this gamma knife treatment. And I'm on my way back to living again. So I'll be bringing new episodes as well, as Jody will be. We'll be taking a break at the end of summer, like July to say October, maybe the end of September. But we have some really good episodes coming up. And I am looking forward to getting back into the swing of things. And hope you all are doing great out there. So you guys take care. And I'll see you on the next episode. If you'd like more information on the MS Gym, you can find them at msgym.com, on Facebook, on YouTube, or Instagram. If you'd like to know what I've been up to lately, you can find me at brookslick.com or on Instagram.